This has truly been a demonically delightful day. You guys know this, but I'm very much obsessed with Diablo. I've beaten the games, I've max leveled hardcore characters, I've read all the Diablo books, I have stuff like the Diablo art books and stuff like that. I truly love this entire franchise, and now I've had a chance to play about 12 hours of Diablo IV. So I want to discuss the goods, the bads, and the uglies. What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here. Hi, hope you're having a great day. If you could like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. Now, I do want to make it clear, technically this gameplay is just like B-roll. They actually would not let me record my gameplay because some stuff is definitely not complete. Some of the cutscenes and stuff had like robotic text-to-speech. Some of the spell effects and stuff are definitely not fully polished, but even in its current state, this game is so addictively fun to play. But let's start things off by talking about what this demo was. So I had access to 3 of the 5 total characters. I had access to the warrior, which is the barbarian, of course, the rogue, which is like an assassin, and the sorcerer, who's the person who slings a bunch of elemental magic, frost, electricity, and fire. Now I leveled up all 3 characters, and holy heck is it freaking exciting to see these new talent trees and stuff. But let's start things off by talking about the rogue, because this is the one that's very much feels like it embodies the essence of what makes Diablo IV different than 1, 2, or 3. Now, when you're playing these characters, you really get a chance to have total freedom. You can walk in any direction. The zones themselves are big and connected. They straight up told me, I got a chance to talk to the developers. They said you can walk from one side of Sanctuary to the other. This is going to be one big connected map. There are still dungeons you're going to be exploring that randomly pop up, and of course going into like particular spooky spots to complete a quest, but this is a much more connected, much more alive world. So when I was playing as the rogue, you have 2 different styles of play to focus on. The ranged spec, which is like your bows, your crossbows, your explosive bombs and traps, or a more melee-focused build where you use stuff like teleports and back attacks with your daggers and swords to try and deal some very hefty damage. Now, the rogue is very interesting because as soon as I started playing it, you really get a chance to see the fact that this game, it's trying to be much, much darker than Diablo 3 was. Now, I say this as a person who did like Diablo 3 a lot, but it was definitely trying to go for the more World of Warcraft aesthetic. The characters were basically cartoonish at times, even blowing up demons and stuff seemed very silly and Adult Swim in its aesthetic. Diablo IV is truly the grim dark. The developer straight up told me that the objective of D4 was to make it so that it's dark and it's scary, but the lands are something you want to defend. And honestly, I do feel like they nailed that. So throughout the course of this, I basically had access to all of a prologue and Act 1, this area that's called the Steppes. Now, this is like a rocky area that's kind of snowy in parts of it, and they don't want me to reveal any specifics of the main quest because I've already seen a lot of very big, crazy spoilers, but I do want to just generally say that the writing has been fantastic. It feels like the story is much more personal than the previous ones were. I like Diablo 2 and 3 a lot, but I always felt like the books, the Diablo novels, really fleshed out the universe better. Having an individual named protagonist actually breathes that extra bit of personal element into these stories, and it feels like Diablo 4 is trying to do that. Diablo 4 wants this to be a personal tale of revenge as we track down Lilith, the demon that actually created Sanctuary and is now seemingly trying to destroy it. There are some moments in this that literally made me gasp. There are these really gorgeous and interesting cutscenes that happen in each of the major quests that, honestly, they're just impressive how much the Blizzard animation team is managing to do in-engine. Your character interacting with people in the middle of these giant galactic universal wars are so freaking cool to look at, and it really invested me in it. There's also something very interesting that's different about Diablo IV, which is that they're trying to go for a non-linear storytelling experience, which means that each of the main campaign stuff you do is kind of standalone. Somebody may have you like exploring a burned down church to figure out what happened, or trying to save some people from a local dungeon or something like that. And when you're doing it, that story stands on its own. It connects to the further events that are going on in the area, but it makes it so they said that the idea is that you can do stuff in any order you want. You can go and collect loot or kill the big demon or fight that next boss. But the events, like, you'll need to eventually do enough to go on to the next chapter, but there isn't a set order of business the way that there was in obviously games like Diablo 3 and 2, where it was really just A, B, C. And I think this definitely works, but it's the one aspect I am slightly nervous about. The stories I saw so far, these story beats were so incredibly good, but I do worry that if I had played this in a different order, would it have been as impactful? If I had decided to just power level and skip some of this stuff, would I have lacked some of that punch to these major Lilith moments we got? But going back to it, let's discuss the interestingness of the talent tree. So everybody plays very drastically different. Obviously, the barbarian is going to have very brutal, in-your-face strikes. The sorceress, I played her, and I decided to go a frost build. And each of the talents you choose greatly affect each individual skill you're going to use. Like when I was playing the sorceress, when you go fire, you have a bunch of explosive abilities that do a bunch of damage over time effects, basically burning whole areas of characters at once. Whereas with my sorceress personally, I specialized in these frost talents that are going to keep demons moving slowly, and when an enemy is chilled, they would automatically take additional hits. They would take extra damage. It's interesting that these different abilities really do change the nature of play. Like for my assassin rogue, I went so heavy into the talent called barrage, where I would basically do like a scatter shot, and then I specialized so that my barrage shots could ricochet off enemies multiple times and then even take additional damage from those ricochets. It made it where like shotgun blasting into a big group of demons was so satisfying. I mean, sometimes I would just seriously start going through little tiny side stuff, not because I needed to, not because I needed the additional loot, but straight up because I wanted those experience points, and it felt so good to blow people up. Now, as you start to expand the tree, the way it works is that it's like a big giant set of veins, and whenever you're putting in talents, it slowly unlocks stronger abilities. And I think this is interesting because the way it kind of breaks down is that it makes it where you're very, very focused on the simple stuff first. At the very beginning of the game, for that first like 5 levels, you're very centered on one major skill, one passive ability. And then as the tree slowly expands, because you're spending those talent points, you start to get the more advanced abilities, stuff that's going to move you across the screen or help out your buddies. And I think this is a very, very brilliant but subtle way to influence us into trying stuff that's going to think outside your typical one-on-one standard. It's very much a game that's built for that group play, and when you're filling out the talent tree and leveling up, you start to incidentally think in that group-focused mindset. For this little demo version of the game I decided to play about 5 hours of it with a controller and about 5 hours with the keyboard and mouse. Personally, I do think that the keyboard and mouse is a little bit harder. I play a lot of PC games, but the controller just felt a little bit more fluid with the activity of skills, trying to aim a special attack under fire and just using potions and stuff. It does feel like this is a little bit better built for the console player experience. Or if you're playing it on PC, I definitely recommend you pick up at least a little cheesy Xbox controller. It's going to make your life a lot easier. But the other part of this that I want to talk about is definitely that I really, really, really dig the fact that they went for this darker, slightly harder aesthetic, like these gorier graphics, these dark depths. And when you start the game, it straight up asks you, do you want to begin on hard mode? There's like an easy mode for if you want to play the story and stuff, which they're calling normal difficulty, or the one that's the adventurer status that lets you pick a difficulty that's not like 10 times harder. But they say if you play on the harder difficulty, if you're you're already experienced at playing Diablo or have played with hardcore characters and stuff, start on this tougher difficulty for more experience points and better loot. And honestly, it was a better experience. I'm glad I chose that harder difficulty because, yeah, I died. Yeah, I had to, restart things a couple times, but it was way more fun. A lot of Diablo games are so easy up front, and you have to beat the game once on super easy mode before you actually unlock the difficulties. I love that Diablo IV actually trusts the players right up front to just make their own experience out of it. For the most part, I really like Diablo IV, but I do want to see more of it. This taste of it, this opening area, I was able to level up to level 25. The full game is going to level up to level 100. I do think this game does have a lot of running in it, even with the teleporters and stuff. I kind of wish they had given me access to the mounts. You're going to be able to ride horses and stuff in the full game. I kind of need access to that to understand this mobility more. They also, when talking to the developers, they really pushed the idea of this being a living world, and not just in the typical in-universe sense, but it sounds like they really are planning on rolling out lots of updates, lots of patches, lots of expansions later on to keep you playing again and again. I hope we get an actual ending in this. Each of the Diablo games, even though they do get DLC, each of them has an ending. Each of them has you trying to kill Diablo or something. They have a resolution and then separately more cool content later. I really hope that they do not try and do some cheesy cliffhanger ending to tease that next patch or update. Please do not treat this like Destiny 2. Treat this in a serious manner, a typical Diablo. But as it stands, this is genuinely one of my most hyped games of 2023. I cannot wait to play more. I mean, if you guys do any more demos, any more events, please let me play it. Give this to the masses as soon as you can. A direct plea to Blizzard themselves. Release a demo or a beta as quick as you can, because honestly, people are going to be lining up to pre-order this. That's legitimately how much I love this. But what do you guys think about Diablo 4? Does this look good? Does this look bad? Tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed it, please give it a big old thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. And please do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.